So the big question we want to answer is this: how a hard-working individual who always followed the rules and who knows there is more to life than working 9 to 5 for 40 years to retire, how do you fast track to a lifestyle of wealth and freedom using property? That's the big question, and I'm here to give you the answers. My name is George Lumbana, and I'm a professional property investor and entrepreneur.
Good afternoon, everybody. Good afternoon, George. How are you doing today?
I'm doing really, really good. Thank you very much, Noel.
That's great.
Thank you for having me here.
No, thank you. Thank you for being here. And with all the listeners, spending some time, 10, 15 minutes with us today in our podcast, which has a very unusual subject, I should say, which is crop houses, or as well known as cannabis houses. This is a not so rare subject, or not so rare matter that is affecting property investment nowadays. And to start with, George, I would like to tell you about an experience or something I saw once, where about 10 years ago, I was working at a factory, and then at night, the operatives at night, they discover that some people were on the roof. It was very strange because this warehouse was supposed to be empty, and you would never ever see anybody around that warehouse or inside at all. What happened was that the operatives saw the people on the roof. They thought they were thieves, and they called the police. When the police came, they found that this was actually a warehouse full of cannabis. So they were growing cannabis like, at a massive level, a massive scale. And that was impressive because it took them like the whole day to get rid of that, to empty the warehouse. And they didn't catch anybody. They basically escaped. But that's a phenomenon that is also affecting residential property, correct, George?
That's absolutely right. So basically, criminals are targeting more residential properties that they are now targeting, that they used to target commercial ones, and that's because it's less evident, and they can just blend in with the neighbors. So it's a problem at the moment. And actually, over the last year, through the pandemic, those type of properties are actually increased in quite drastically. And I was having a conversation with a couple of people that obviously had the experience of getting crops in the properties and how they dealt with it. And obviously, when I bought at auction, I've seen loads and loads of properties that they were used as crops before it was actually put on the auction. So there's a number of ways of how to identify properties that have been crops before. And one of them, it's instantly when you walk in at the property, you can see holes in the walls, like big holes, and that's where they put the vents through the roof and ceiling and into the chimney stacks to disperse the smell. And secondly, the electricity. Normally what they do, they bypass the electricity. So they tend to get another cable and literally just bypass the electricity and set up loads of switches and just new cables around to run into the lamps that they use to heat up and control the temperature of the plants themselves. And obviously, it's in some occasions you can still see the plants and the pots on the floor, literally just laying there. So that's pretty much the ways you can identify that property. If you purchase a property that has been a crop before, that's pretty much the way to understand that it was a crop before. The other thing that's important to know, it's how to avoid it. So obviously, you've seen the properties when you're going to buy them at auction, but how do you avoid to be caught in this game with these gangsters? Well, first of all, by referencing the tenants properly. And when I mean referencing the tenants, is making sure that the identifications that they're giving you, the correct ones. You can actually verify that the person is the actual person of the passport that you're getting, because they tend to give obviously fake IDs, and they try to pay everything in cash. So when they try to pay everything in cash, be very aware of that, because criminals like to use cash for everything, and they can offer 3 months in advance of rent. They can offer deposit, pretty much everything is straight up, and everything in cash. So that's a big alarm bell for you to understand that something is going on. Everyone in the 21st century who hasn't got a bank account, it's something wrong with it, you know. And when someone someone has so much money in cash, obviously it's a big alarm bell for everyone. The other thing is they tend to I've seen quite a lot. They tend to be Albanians, and then the prime nationality that kind of like deal with this business, especially in cities like London, Liverpool, Leeds, Manchester. It's incredible, and majority of them tend to be Albanians. I don't want to be racist or anything like that. This is just the experience that I've seen, and the comments that all the people that had happened to them, they have experienced as well. And then what you can do once your property has been used as a crop, well, first of all, contact the police. Obviously, report the issue if you have any suspicion or anything, or if you actually found anything in the property while you were there or wherever. First thing is to call the police. Do not touch anything. Just get out of the property and wait for the police to come and do their job, because you don't want to be incriminated. You don't want to have any fingerprints or anything, or be involved in anything that was happening in the property. So that's basically how you start managing those things. And the most important thing is the police. It really depends on where in the UK it is. But for instance, in London, it's actually very tricky, because there's a lot of helicopters going in the evenings with a heat lamp and a heat detector, and kind of like flying around the neighborhoods, and they can see the amount of heat that every single household is producing. Obviously, you can tell when a crop is operating, because the amount of energy that is taken is quite substantial. So these heat detectors obviously know which properties, just by flying over them, is being used as a crop. And then obviously they will start an investigation into the property, and eventually they will raid the property if necessary. So that's something that's happening, and that's how the police tackle this problem. As I said earlier in the podcast, it used to happen quite a lot with factories or very like remote locations where literally no one is around. But now they targeting residential properties, and that's pretty much where everyone could be affected, could be a victim of these plans. So the only way to avoid it, as I said, is meet the person, or if you have agents doing it for you, they need to know and verify the identification that they provide. Make sure that the bank details matches the description of the person that is providing the IDs, and also do some work references or previous landlord reference, or anything that obviously certified that the person that it's is doing this, it's obviously the one that it's on the ID. So that's pretty much how you start avoiding having these issues. But once the thing is done, yes, it just gets very messy and complicated, which in my opinion, it could be very easily stopped if you you carry out the proper checks on people. So yeah, that's basically what happened with these properties.
I think that that George highlights the importance of doing your tenancy agreements correctly and doing everything formal. So you kind of create that separation that the contracts give you. Like, this is rented to somebody else, and it's not somebody I have there working for me, growing cannabis. And to have all those documents and all the checks that you mentioned, is very important to avoid this very, very serious issue that could cost thousands of pounds for the landlord if that happens, as you said, because they will break into walls, and they could actually become a fire risk for the property as well.
Oh, absolutely, absolutely. It's actually very risky because, as I said, they bypass the electricity, and the amount of energy they use to heat up, obviously, all these lamps and to maintain the plants alive, it's quite substantial. So at any moment, if that is not looked after properly, it could catch fire and literally burn the whole house down. And that has happened quite a lot in a number of different properties that I've seen at auction. The whole house has been burned, and obviously people don't know when they buy in the properties. But so you're going to start walking and identifying and identify the walls and identify the sources of it. Then you can tell that obviously there was a crop in there, and obviously it just caught fire, and there you go. And unfortunately, your landlord insurance or your building insurance sometimes don't cover these things, even though it's malicious damage, even though it's accidental damage or whatever you want to call it. It's due because it's a crop. It's not covered by the insurance, or if you didn't carry out the proper check, it's not covered by the insurance. So it's a huge risk to have or try to operate anything like this. So yeah, it needs to be very, very careful, and also the cost involved. Even though the property doesn't catch fire, but just the cost involved in trying to put the property right could be quite substantial as well. Just to put every single wall right, fill up those holes. Obviously, the police will have to do some sort of investigation in the property as well. So that's obviously a very messy investigation where you're going to be involved as well. So it's something to be very careful about.
The property is not making any money, obviously.
And obviously, through that time, the property is not making any money as well. And you still need to cover your mortgage payments, which obviously is another expense that you need to take on board.
Absolutely. So there you have it, guys. That's crop houses, as we call them, a very serious problem, not so rare, and something you need to be careful who you let into your properties. So, George, thank you very much. Hopefully, we created some value there for our listeners. But see you in the next episode. And yeah, thank you for being here.
Thank you, guys. Speak to you soon.
Speak to you soon. Bye-bye.
So for those of you who have the cash but don't have the knowledge, we can help you here at Property Strategies. We can design a roadmap, or we can do a all-done-for-you service. And all you have to do is send us your inquiry at info@propertystrategies.co.uk. And for those of you who don't have the cash and you don't have the knowledge, but you want to start getting started in property, we can also help you. As I said, you can send us your inquiry of what exactly you want to achieve and what you want to do. And then we can tailor a roadmap exactly what you want to do and how you can achieve it, how to put the theory into practice.